You can also use this if you want.
Yeah. Oh, I like the logo. All right, guys. We're going to get started in a minute. And there's plenty of space in the front. On the left side, on the right side. So you want to make yourself comfortable for the speaker session.
No, I only did one side.
Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Consumer AI Build Day at AGI House. My name is Harry, co-founder of AGI House. Very honored to have everyone join us. And I see a lot of people in the back, so it's gonna be a bit hard for you to hear what our amazing speakers will be talking about. So you're gonna come forward and then grab a space. That'll be awesome. Cool. So, first of all, super glad to have you all join us on a beautiful Saturday morning. And before we get started, I'd love to do some small time traveling. In 2010, Instagram launched and get to first 100 million users in 30 months. And in 2017, TikTok launched and get to 100 million users in 9 months. In 2022, we had ChatGPT in 2 months. And today, our challenge to you is to make that 2 months look slow. So build something today, and when people ask when did that app have the explosion overnight, that happens here at Consumer AI Build Day at AGI House. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Thailand from Inworld. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. I think we're all here for the same reason, which is that consumer is really cool, AI is really cool, and we can build something great with it. So just a quick overview of what I'll go through, and then we can hopefully wrap this up and we all can build. So I'll give a quick talk. I'll hand it over to Moritz from Lightspeed, Sana from Tech, Neil from OpenAI, and Mina from Tenstor. And then I'll also go through kind of some of the prizes and everything else just for a reminder. So quickly going through this, the key thing here is I want to kind of go back to what kind of started Inworld, but I think also why a lot of folks here are here and trying to build something in consumer AI. So when we were at DeepMind and trying to kind of figure out how to adopt a lot of generative AI across Google, it was very interesting. There were some early conversations, for example, with search, SVPs there talking about what would an generative AI experience look like in search. And a lot of the challenges there were that it fundamentally changed the way that Google would operate. Google would optimize search to be a specific, retrieval system, making it actually something that implemented AI would completely subvert that. And those conversations happened about 7 years ago. And it was quite frustrating to me because going across these different Google products, my job at that time was in product at DeepMind, trying to get these LLMs adopted. And it was really interesting because there was great ideas across search, YouTube, learning, ads, everything else, but everything kept landing in cloud. There was a ton of kind of momentum, let's say, behind the enterprise applications of AI. And that was interesting. I was always kind of disappointed at how quickly things were reaching generative AI applications in enterprise, professional-facing applications that are augmenting businesses, and how few of it actually lands for consumers. If you look at the top apps in the App Store today, you got ChatGPT on there, but there's very, very few character AI, but very few actual AI native applications that are on there. That's really interesting when you think about the fact that most of the big companies that have been built over the last few years are AI native, but they're business facing, they're professional facing. And it's kind of a question of like, why the heck is there not more consumer-facing applications? You know, ChatGPT defined a new interface, and I think a lot of other people copied that. But there hasn't been a lot of new form factors that are actually invented, and there's something interesting in that opportunity. So I'm excited to see what everybody can here build, but ultimately I think that's why we're here, because there's clearly some opportunity there. The other thing is that at the end of the day, you know, we can keep refining business processes forever, but at the same time, what lands in the hands of consumers is very similar. So we can kind of speed up that machine of production, but at the end of the day, if what reaches consumers is the same, the overall market value doesn't change very much. So it feels like kind of at the end of a lot of the innovation that we're seeing today, at some point, something new needs to reach the hands of consumers. And so kind of going through the, you know, the run show, you know, today I kind of want to go for prizes, and I'll kind of go through the Inworld story. So the goal here is not necessarily just to build something that is a prototype or a demo. That's really, I think, it's way too easy, frankly, with Lovable and Cursor and all those things to build those. So I think the goal is actually building something that drives buzz, something that you can launch, that you can get in the hands of consumers and testers, and see something actually live in the wild. Now, that said, it's one day. We recognize that's hard to build. So hopefully you're coming with ideas and a lot of ambition. But the key is that we want to see something actually get into the wild, push it to actual users, put it out, put it on test flight if you can, and see how it actually performs. So overall, the prizes today are, for first place, $10,000 in Inworld credits, $2,000 in OpenAI credits, and a private helicopter ride around San Francisco, which is pretty cool. That's probably worth it. I mean, if you invest enough in one day, you get a pretty solid day out of it. Next is for second place, $7,000 in Inworld credits, $2,000 in OpenAI credits, and an indoor flight experience. So if you don't want the helicopter ride, just try and win the second place. Third is $5,000 in Inworld credits, $2,000 in OpenAI credits, and a base sailing hour. So that's all pretty sweet. So kind of, if you don't want, if you try and not win first, if you don't want the helicopter ride, you're going to motion sick. And so yeah, the key thing here is, you know, trying to figure out a way to drive real user engagement, define something that is a new form of consumer experience, and that kind of defines a new form factor that actually will hit. All right. So with that said, I'll kind of go through my journey, let's say, with Inworld so far, and what led us where we are now. And then I'll hand over to Moritz and our speakers. So the thing is that we started out with my background kind of coming in that experience of trying to adopt LLMs and generative AI with DeepMind. My co-founder's experience having built a lot of things with Google Cloud and conversational AI. We saw that kind of trend of things moving quickly into enterprise and wanted to figure out how can we actually extend the benefits of AI to everyone. That ultimately had to be through consumer experiences. And I do believe that while it's amazing the business augmentation that we see with AI today, that the real impact of it will come and change our daily lives, not necessarily our professional lives. Also, because if people aren't working as much because of AI anyways, it's going to get really boring if AI is only augmenting that part of their lives. And so we started out actually working in a lot of gaming and media. And so when we first started out, you know, the thing is that LLMs were really a dialogue and action planning. So the first partners that we started working with were gaming and media. Big partners like NVIDIA, Xbox, Disney, Niantic. And it was really cool because it kind of honed, let's say, our understanding of what it took to build consumer scale experiences. It was what the models were good at the time. And what's been interesting, though, is over the last few years, we started to figure out that the infrastructure that we built to serve gaming and media actually had a lot of similar overlaps with the challenges that we're facing across consumer AI. First of all, when you're dealing with millions of concurrent users, it's very, very different than when you're doing legal processing for a couple lawyers at a time. Cost is also very different. Consumer applications need to run for like points on a cent per user per day, rather than $10 per request, which is okay if you're doing, you know, legal requests. Lawyers are expensive. Our general counsel Oliver will agree. But at the end of the day, it has to be very different. Latency is also very different. You know, you need to have millisecond response times rather than taking minutes. And so all these challenges for the consumer are not something that is necessarily being built at the same time for that enterprise-based infrastructure. And so we started to kind of dabble, let's say, in moving away from just pure gaming and media into the broader consumer category. Due to a lot of inbound we're getting across areas like health, fitness, language learning, social connection, people who are either, let's say, AI adopters, big companies trying to move in to new revenue opportunities and new features, or AI native companies like those building here who are starting to ground up with AI at the core. And so that's, you know, I think the two areas that we see. And I think there's going to be a ton of innovation in this space, largely just because the models are finally at the quality, the size, the efficiency, and the ecosystem's evolved enough that we can actually do this. Great. And so overall, what I think is happening right now is Cursor, Lovable, Windsurf, Codex, Claude Code, they are basically solving what it means to build. It has never been so easy to build a business. It has never been so easy to build a product. It's fundamentally, I can't imagine there being a better time. The amount of times that I talk to, a C-level executive at a public company, they're like, I coded an app over the weekend. It took me 3 hours. Why does my team take 4 months to ship a product? It's like, dude, not exactly the same thing when you're pushing to production. But at the same time, it is changing ultimately the way it is to build. At the same time, though, the same amount of effort goes into scaling. So how you actually go from a product that works for 10 test users to 10 million concurrent live users usually requires a very, very different architecture. As most people do here. So you're like, what the heck is Supabase? Like, how you don't just have to actually scale it, you've got to maintain it, you've got to up most of the time goes in. So I was talking with a group who, for example, Zynga, and they were saying when they launched a new game or they launched a new feature in the game, almost the entire team for the next 6 months spent their time fixing bugs, maintaining, and that basically meant that they were only able to ship a couple new updates per year because each update requires so much time on maintenance and updates that it basically meant that they couldn't move on to the next new feature. And that's a kind of core challenge, I think, with consumer apps, because that velocity of creating updates, improving your features, is what actually helps you kind of fix your users. Very, very few consumer apps have ever launched, never changed their code, and been successful. Very, very few have even launched and now changed their UI and core features in a few years and been successful. It's really about that iteration speed that actually allows you to find that user fit. So this is kind of, an overview kind of to that Zynga story, let's say. You can imagine it takes you 6 months, for example, to go from an idea today to actually standing up a viable AI feature. That's because, you might vibe code your first app over a weekend or a hackathon. Then it takes the next 6 months to figure out, okay, I actually started getting users, I scaled to 1,000 users, my cost is going insane, my databases are breaking, I need to actually get this live. So then you finally launch your first launch. Then you spend the next couple of months with your entire team on maintenance, you launch your next launch, and then also, which is like pretty good, I guess, by normal standards, or it's that velocity that ends up winning. And so what we've realized is it's really important to be able to move fast, not just because you can get more updates, but because your wins compound. So if you're able to basically have each feature, maintain the value of it, and not necessarily just have it kind of drop off, then you can move on to launching the next feature, and the next feature, and the features end up compounding the value that you're able to create. And this is really critical. When you see a lot of successful apps, I mean, you can look at all your the favorite chat interfaces now, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, whatever your favorite is, they're constantly churning out new features. That's because there's a huge competition around that, and that's a consumer-facing application. And those wins end up compounding. When you see things added like an MCP node, and people can have their Google Drive, now there's new functionality. But this is, you've raised your pre-seed, and you need to keep moving. I want to say, like, how can we actually solve this? Because it's not for a team to be able to stand their infrastructure to make all of that work. And so the one case that we saw as an example of this is Wishroll. So Wishroll is a company that their app is called Status. So it's people haven't played it, probably a good reason because you're not Gen Z or Gen Alpha maybe. And the idea is it's a Twitter clone, kind of an AI native Twitter clone. Crazy idea, really cool execution. So you take your idea of let's say I want to be Harry Potter, and I step into Harry Potter versus Twitter. I role play as Harry Potter in Harry Potter versus Twitter, and my goal is to basically become an influencer in that world. Super cool idea, small team, not a lot of ML background. So when they launched their first part of the application on Discord, they had huge success. They grew to 60,000 users, people loved it, but it cost them $15 per day, per user, which was astronomical. So we helped them basically move their costs down to points and a cent per user. We got them onto a flywheel to basically ensure that their updates and maintenance were actually automated. And that ultimately meant that they were able to go from 0 to 1 million users in 19 days. Which is pretty damn good. And then with them, we continue to kind of take their ongoing user data, figure out how we do prompt surgery and figure out the best kind of cost optimization and best engage our users. We take metrics like time spent or retention, figure out kind of what model graphs optimize for that. And ultimately, this flywheel means that they're getting week-on-week updates. And this is a great story because they're an amazing team. They've got a great idea. the cost is breaking, the infrastructure is breaking, and at the end of the day now they've got 20 million monthly active users or so that are extremely happy and engaged. And so this is the kind of success story that we want to look for, and what I hope folks around that space of AI native social media that's very interesting what folks kind of lean into. And so what generally kind of I have broken down is like 3 core factors that end up like making or breaking a lot of these consumer applications. And this is, I think, like one of the core insights that we've had working with these groups for the last 4 years. And honestly, it's not like everyone we work with has been successful. I think that's kind of honest and true to say. We have worked with a lot of companies who have had great ideas, tried to launch them, and they've completely flopped. We've had other ones that have tried to launch and it broke. And so this is kind of a learning also from the winners and the losers. Not to say losers, but the people who have been successful. And so overall, the first is that you have to just get from prototype to production. That gap is what kills a lot of teams, because you kind of start with this vibe coding or hacker mentality, and then when you're scaling up to large-scale infrastructure to handle millions of users, things change a lot in that process. And so that ability just to go from prototype to production is kind of a binary flip if you can actually be successful or not. And that is kind of a core factor. But the 2 other ones that we found to be most important is, first of all, how many, or basically what percentage of resources is your team actually allocated to new features? Or you can think about another way, which is what percentage of your team is needed to be allocated to maintenance? Because that effectively determines how many new features your team can launch per year. So if 60% or 80% of your team is spent on infrastructure or maintenance, that means 60 or 80% of your team is not actually pushing new product development. On the other side, there's a question of how many updates can you make per feature, in a year or in a month or a day. And what we see is, going back to that Zynga story, is it's really hard to push those updates, especially when each one has its own kind of maintenance behind it. And so teams kind of stall up and then they're pushing, 1 month update a month, 1 every 2 months, 1 every 3 months, and that also kills their velocity. And so overall, there's kind of this camp of where most consumer apps, not the necessarily big ones today, are, which is they have very limited feature development, and they basically have very little updates per feature. And they're kind of just surviving. Their growth is just flat, if not declining at all. And that's just because consumers change their perspectives all the time, their preferences change, models change. So if you're not constantly updating your models, if you're not constantly updating your interface, you're just surviving. The steady state is basically saying, okay, I have no new features, but I'm constantly updating the ones that I have. That's pretty good. You basically can maintain what you have, you can stay successful there, and there's a good, there's an okay outcome, but you're never going to become a leader. And then the prototypers are the ones who are just constantly, and I would say a lot of AI native groups fall into this camp, where it becomes easier to launch a new feature or a new app altogether than it is to maintain the one that you have. Because your team has been built around Cursor, and you're really just churning out new stuff, but you're not scaling and maintaining a lot of it. And so that's kind of the prototypers, as I would call it. So that's where I think a lot of groups fall into. Where we see the leaders is people who are constantly putting out new features, building in telemetry into them, understanding the metrics that actually work for their users, and constantly making updates that actually matter. And those leaders are constantly compounding those wins because they're adding new features. Each feature itself is getting better and not dropping off. And over time, those are the ones that kind of pull ahead. And so that's kind of what we found the importance, kind of those factors of how much of your time is actually needed to be spent on maintenance and how many updates are you able to make in a given time frame. And so that kind of just a quick breakdown of what those are. So basically, how fast can you go from prototype to production? What percentage of your time is spent on maintenance, and how fast can you experiment and launch what works? And so the interesting story with they also got a caveat, which is we're launching in a few weeks. It is, the first public access to it that anybody has had. It's in a beta state. We're honest about that. We want you to experiment with it. We want you to have fun. We also want you to give us lots of feedback on that. So just noting, it's a beta product. Take that as it is, but we're excited also to share it with you. So how we actually built this was, first of all, from our own experience. So it was actually the infrastructure that we used for ourselves as we were working with those category leaders in gaming and media. And the main things that we found was, first of all, we needed to build something like an adaptive graph. So pre-optimized notes for things like LLMs, text-to-speech, knowledge, memory, safety, and then our team could basically choose from those building blocks. And the challenge that we have with a lot of other tools and frameworks was you could choose from those building blocks, but when you tried to push traffic behind them and scale them, they all broke. And so each actual node needed to be kind of scale agnostic or scale adaptive. And we also needed to have it so that, if each node itself was working, that was great. But an application usually ends up having, 20 plus models or tools actually all architected together. And so it's all about that kind of full end-to-end pipeline quality, not necessarily just the quality of the specific node or model. And that was kind of important as well. So that ability of adaptive graphs, so building something that you can scale up from 10 to 10 million users with minimal code changes, to change the way that we can work fast. And those also kind of integrated runtime that y'all are getting today. The second is around this idea of embedded evolution. So we found that we were spending a ton of time on maintenance. Most of our team was allocated to that. It was killing us because we were spending too much time. And so we started building a lot of systems that integrated telemetry into the product. They were kind of able to understand the signals from users, let us know what we needed to focus on so that we could kind of step back from kind of constantly pushing on the maintenance, focus on the new product development while using the dashboards and everything else there to kind of let us know where bugs were, where errors were, as well as where users were necessarily unsatisfied. And so that idea of having the embedded intelligence that manages the application, but also sends telemetry back, we found was very important. And the last point, which is the kind of core thing that we pushed on, is what we found is that when we were having to kind of wait for a sprint to finish to push a new update, it was killing our velocity because we weren't able to experiment fast enough. So we had lots of customers with larger applications that were basically wanting to make tons of updates to models, to prompts, to different parts of the UI, and we'd have to wait 2 weeks for the next sprint to finish. So what we ended up doing was building a way to do deployment-free or code-free experiments. So you can set up a bunch of configurations of, let's say, 20 different model graphs that could be for different user segments, different scenarios, and then what you could do is basically set up, different allocations. So push each one to 1% of traffic, let's say, and then see which one performs best, scale up the ones that work, drop the ones that don't, and continuously iterate like that. And so being able to do that without code changes or without any redeployments meant that we could do, tens of experiments or hundreds of experiments theoretically per day. And so that made we could move a lot faster. And so these are the kind of core things that you'll find using the runtime. Now, whether or not people get to live traffic today and are actually starting to experiment on that is a whole other question. But the core parts of using the adaptive graphs, I think, is what folks will mainly experience today. And this is what you'll mainly interact with. So we have our SDKs where you can kind of actually architect the graphs. It's a very familiar interface. It should feel like using something like the Vercel SDK or LangGraph or anything like that. But at the back end, what it instantiates is a C++-based graph. And so that is instantiated whether you're deploying on your machine, whether you're deploying on the server, and that is kind of managing all of the actual execution. So you build the graph, and in that graph, you kind of have these nodes. Each of them are pre-optimized models or tools, your basic constructions that you usually use, LLMs, text-to-speech, all of that. And also what it does is kind of manages all the different model running and scaling. So as you scale, for example, to thousands of queries per second, usually you have to deal with a lot of rate limits, capacity issues, and that with your provider. So the system handles all of that for you, ensures intelligent running so that you can maintain that reliability. And the last point is you'll have a portal where you can go in and actually see all the logs and traces happening in your application, and you can then go in there and set up your experiments. So that's where basically once you define your configurations that you want to try, you can allocate which ones you want to push to different traffic. And so that's how you'll interact with that. And so finally, while we aren't a model company, we do have this kind of benefit of, because we are operating across lots of different models, to understand what the bottlenecks are. And so at certain points, we decide to invest ourselves in building these specific nodes or models on our own, although we generally take a model agnostic approach and work with all providers. And so with text-to-speech, which we came out with a few weeks ago, the reason that we did this is we found voice was a huge blocker for a lot of applications. And so we were able to basically innovate with a new architecture, drop the cost by 50 to 75x, depending on who you're comparing to. And we were also able to improve on speed, quality in terms of word error score and similarity score, as well as making a lot of other improvements in core features like zero-shot voice cloning, word tags for things like speech, styles, emotions, nonverbal expressions. And that was ultimately very exciting. So this is kind of all available, and you can kind of use this as part of the runtime today. And finally, just an example of how you may want to use this. I'm not sure how far people will get today, but you can start, for example, installing the Inworld SDK, or you can start manually or install it with your favorite vibe coding platform. You can then, as you're actually testing traffic, you can just share it around your teams or among yourself, or if you want to push it to friends and family or to the wild, that's fine. You can start to see the logs and traces coming into the portal. And then what you can do is start to set up your dashboard. So these are around specific metrics. For example, if you care about retention, you're not going to care about necessarily yet. Let's say time spent on certain parts of the application, certain completion rates, whatever core metrics are that you want to set up, you can set them up via the runtime and then monitor them in the portal. Then when you kind of actually want to start setting up your experiments, you go into the SDK and you define your different variants in your different graph variants. You can go into the portal then and turn on the experiments and allocate different traffic to different experiments, see which ones work well, and then scale them up. Ultimately, then you can monitor the metrics and dashboard across your different experiments, see which ones work, and then repeat the whole thing and start building again. Well, basically, the experiments manage themselves. So I will say, this is, of course, a better product. So we have folks from the Inworld team here who are willing to help. I don't know if the Inworld folks can put their hands up. So we got lots of folks from Inworld. We got Faith Fan, Julia, Audi, Mike, Cheryl, Lydia, and Lauren, I believe. I may have missed a couple people, who I can see here. And so please reach out if you have any questions to any of those people or grab me at any time. With that, I think that's all for me. I want to hand over to Moritz first. But before I do that, I will also kind of give out a shout out to some other sponsors that, we have great sponsors here with Lightspeed, with TenStorrent, Sauna, Fetch, OpenAI, Windsurf, and also we have other groups that are not necessarily able to be here today, but we have LG supporting as well as Bitcraft. And so there might be people from there popping by through the day, so also give them thanks for sponsoring. So with that, I will hand over to Moritz. Just some quick hype getting set up. So Moritz is a partner at Lightspeed. He leads their interactive media and gaming practice. I've known Moritz now for a few years. Maybe you can tell your own story, but he was a professional gamer before he did all this, and it's very obvious in everything he does. Everything is extremely competitive. You should ask him the stats of his baby, and it's very good. It's like, okay.
I'm really only here today to give my best Kylan impression, so shame's out. Maybe one thing that Kylan mentioned in the beginning that I think is really important and one lens through which we look at really all kind of consumer applications is this idea to not just use AI in production, to accelerate things, to basically shave off costs and build things that are already possible today, but faster or cheaper. But instead of that, to build previously impossible experiences. That's really a term we like to think through a lot. Ultimately, I think a lot of consumers, I focus a lot of my time on gaming, that's certainly true for gamers, but I think it's true in consumer in general. People don't really care about the sausage making, they care about the sausage, right? If what comes out on the other side is not fundamentally different, then why spend any time with it? And I think what we've seen in previous platform shifts, for example, the transition to mobile, most recently, cloud impacted consumer a little bit differently than with enterprise, but let's take mobile or the introduction of the internet. And I think, with generative AI, we're kind of in a platform shift that is akin to that. The things that really knocked it out of the park and became huge venture scale upside stories were the things that didn't just take what was previously existing and try to press it into some new form factor or paradigm, but they developed applications that simply wouldn't be possible without the internet and multiplayer or social connectivity, or then wouldn't be possible with a form factor like the mobile phone and games. It's no surprise that, a Take-Two or Electronic Arts or Activision didn't actually win mobile. And they all had to make expensive acquisitions with Zynga, King. And, it's not just about how do I bring FIFA to the small screen. It doesn't work. The session times are completely different. People carry this device with them, right? They don't commit and sit down for a 2 or 3 hour console session. And so I think it's a policy of a lot of incumbents is to think that way, like how can we use what we have and press it kind of into this AI, reality. And I think the benefit that you all have is you can start with a blank page and really design everything, including the organization from the ground up for this new reality. So I'm just talking really briefly about a program that we're launching next week. And I'll have my email in the end as well. If you're interested, you can just email me about it. We'll try and announce it, I think, on Wednesday. It's called Game Changers. It's the 3rd time we're doing this now. And a little bit about Lightspeed first, maybe, including with the funds that we're investing from right now that we haven't actually announced yet. We're well over 30 billion in assets under management today. We're one of the generalist firms that are truly global. A lot of our peers operate in the US, or maybe US and China, US and Europe, sometimes with 1 or 2 people on the ground. We have offices across the US, across Europe, Israel, India, Southeast Asia, and that's been part of our DNA from the get-go. When it comes to gaming and interactive media, we're pretty active as lead investors over the last 2 years specifically. And I think one superpower, without have to pick one, of how we work with our gaming and interactive media companies, I think our connectivity with CEOs in the industry is pretty unmatched. If you want to Google the CEO forum, we hosted a GDC, for example, but you'll see some of it in here as well. So what's game changers? We have this idea to create a list that highlights extraordinary work that we see in the industry. In my case, anything happening around gaming and interactive media, but also we go into consumer adjacencies here as well. And it's, the motivation is not kind of like deal sourcing or, pushing our own agenda here. It's with partners across the industry to really just shine a light on the amazing work that's happening in the industry. And we're providing for winners a good portfolio, I would say, on stuff. Media coverage, we're partnering with NASDAQ to put the winners on the Times Square every year, which is always fun and takes over X and LinkedIn for the day. And I think what excites people to participate is the one-on-one mentoring with the industry leaders. And they are quite good. We'll get to that in a second. This year's theme is chaos. It would have been easy to just make it AI, but I feel like everything's like so messed up right now, right? Especially in the gaming industry, massive layoffs. VCs, are they even still investing if it's not AI? Or what are they even looking for? Do they have money themselves? Tariffs questions which are still unresolved. Budget costs for cuts for a lot of the big projects, and then obviously AI. But you can also flip that on its head and say, okay, it's a beautiful mess, so let's try and find the North Stars in all of this. And the startups are kind of defying gravity right now. And we're looking for nominations or submissions. You can apply yourself, or you can nominate your friends if you think they're building something cool in these 5 domains: generative AI, interactive media platforms, 3D tech and infrastructure, game studios, including user-generated content, and then we also have a special category for anything that's byte coded. Okay, so this is maybe among the more exciting parts of this. We have really cool judges and people who are offering their time one-on-one on this. So these are all folks that just joined our advisory council, that kind of extended Lightspeed members. Sarah Bond, president of Xbox. Matt now runs Unity. Strauss is the CEO of Take-Two, which includes GTA. And then Walter is at Scopely, maybe best known for Monopoly Go. But there's some other cool judges. These are kind of like CEOs and C-level executives that supported the program last time. I just finalized judges yesterday. So I think for this year, some highlights include also president of Electronic Arts, the CEO of Riot Games, CEO of Discord, CEO of Zynga. I'm like probably forgetting a bunch. Yeah, and this is when the whole thing will go live on lsvp.com. Game Changers. Again, that'll probably happen on Wednesday or Thursday. We'll have about 2-3 months to review all startup submissions. We'll announce the winners in San Francisco, including a reception on November 13th, I think. And then the day after, in the morning of November 14th, we take over the NASDAQ tower and social media. And you can't apply just yet, but if you're interested, just send me an email at moritz@lsvp.com. And then,
So should people packing here today maybe submit their stuff to this next week?
Yeah, and also we probably have to email distribution, yes, right? So I think once we're live, we'll just send it to all of you anyway. This is the end of the slideshow.
I'll just hand over. I think Neil, your place, or Simon, your room.
All right, so we're gonna have Santa come fetch, and so yeah, if anybody builds something great here, submit it to Game Changers. It is great, and you'll get a lot of publicity out of it, so it's a good kind of follow-up for the successes.
Feels like deja vu, but I'm here again. So I think I will kick off. This is just a small demo. I thought I had 5 minutes, so I will make it not too boring just talking about it and probably show you something more useful. So I just have a quick question. How many people know here what fetch does? Anybody? Not many. So I'm going to give you a quick run through of what fetch does. So fetch is a company based back in Cambridge in United Kingdom. We started building agents when nobody knew what agents were. In 2018, people didn't understand what we were talking about. Now everybody knows what agents are. But how many people here are using LLMs? Most of people here, yes. How many people are building agents? Quite few. But how many people are using an LLM which can query agents and perform a task and execute the agent? I don't think that there is an answer because there is an LLM which we build called ASI1, which is connected to our marketplace of agents. What it does is actually an LLM, the model that we have is actually connected to the marketplace, and what it does is actually goes and queries the agent from the agentverse, which is the marketplace, and executes it. So I'm going to show you a quick run through of the video, which actually shows a very boring use case. But the idea isn't that I wanted you to kind of look at the boring use case. Here today, I'm going to put out a challenge where I'm saying, if you kind of make a content, because you're a consumer AI, if you can build a content which is, now this is a nice part, hear me out. If you build something which goes viral, and you can bring more consumers to fetch, either using ASI1, which is the LLM, or the agent marketplace, I'm going to fund 10K to build your startup, to start the funding. So it is very interesting. You can build anything you are building currently with Inworld, any other sponsors. So if you can actually build something and actually make content available for ASI1 or something which can tie up and bring Gen Zs to ASI1 or Agentverse, I'm going to fund 10K. I'm just going to show you a quick run through of how the ASI1 and the Agentverse work. I mean, I might actually be talking while it's going. So this is the interface of our LLM. It goes and asks a query like any other LLM. It's reasoning, I mean, just like any other LLM. And then if you see this, there is a toggle here which says agent search. And what it does is actually connects it to Agentverse, which is this platform. So I've showed you just SNR Autos, which is a garage where you can book the MOT and service using the agent. And then it goes and found the agent when you queried if you want to book a service. And then it sends a message and it waits for the response. And then it starts working, and I will say, yes, go and book ahead. And then it goes and books me a service, and I'm able to pay for it. So we have Stripe integration. We also have integration with Skyfire. So if you are looking to make payment through any other system, there is Skyfire integration. We are releasing more features every day. But if you see, it's just going to kind of go through accepting what the information is, and then it will go and kind of book me the service and pays for it. So this is the only use case. I mean, I wanted to not show very interesting use case because I want you guys to think if you want to bring something to ASI1, if you can build a content which is better than this, it can query the agent, it can bring the agent back using the Inworld. That was very interesting of how Inworld is making it more efficient with the voice and things. So if you can actually, we have a voice integration as well, so you can actually do participate in other people's challenge and still be able to. So it's actually goes and books because it's giving me options. I said yes, I want to book oil and filter check. And it goes and speaks to the agent, which is running on Agentverse, which is a marketplace. And then you see it's actually done that. And now it's also connected to Google Calendar. So it will send a notification straight onto your calendar that it's been booked. And if you see that it's still going, so there are a few different items that's connected currently, and we're releasing more features. But don't get me wrong, this actually doesn't stop here. We also have something called async communication. So while this is going, you can ask how's the weather to the LLM. At the same time, you can request a flight booking. It will go and book the flight as well. This is a Stripe integration. It's just showing you can pay through Stripe. You can pay through the wallet if you have a wallet connected to it, so you can actually pay through wallet. You can download the invoice as a standard method. And then it just says it's booking confirmed because it goes and checks it's all been paid for. That's about it. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of just giving you the final thing, and it goes and books it in your calendar. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, next we have Neil from OpenAI Agent Demo.
What's the app called?
Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Neil. I'm at the team at OpenAI, helping build ChatGPT Agent. For those of you who don't know, we launched Agent a couple weeks ago, and it maybe just to give you a little bit of history. In Being this year, we launched a couple agentic capabilities into ChatGPT, namely one, Operator, which was our first model that was able to go use a browser and take action. So it's able to do visual browsing, let people log in, and click around, scroll, type, and do a lot of really interesting general purpose work. We also launched Deep Research, which was one of our first reasoning models that was trained to go really deeply browse the internet, understand a lot of sources, do high quality analysis, and create really strong reports. These are two different teams at OpenAI, and as we were building and thinking about what was coming next, we both realized that we wanted to go and solve very similar problems. Deep Research was really good at synthesizing and understanding data, but it wasn't able to go and take action afterwards. Operator was really good at taking action, but it wasn't necessarily as good at doing really deep synthesis and retrieval to help you make that decision in the first place. And so, as two different teams, we decided to join forces and to put together one compelling offering. And so, what that ended up becoming is what we call a ChatGPT agent. And this is the very beginning of what we're thinking around as a universal agent that's able to do valuable work for you. Now, valuable work can be a whole lot of different things. For consumers, it can be doing expensive purchases, trying to find things to book. For knowledge workers, putting together harder analyses, trying to do really hard research, trying to search among all the different tools that they have. And we introduced a lot of new skills into Agent as part of this. It's able to do deep research type actions, Operator's ability to execute tasks in a browser. We gave it really early abilities to start putting together slides and spreadsheets. The ability to look into and call different APIs and connectors, things like Google Drive. We've given it a terminal tool, so it's able to go and analyze data and put together really strong analyses. And it's also our first natively multi-turn model. And I'll show you a little bit of how these things come to life. One small example, the quintessential shopping example, where you can ask Agent to go find some things on Etsy and add them to your cart. And so on the left over here, you can sort of see a quick screenshot of the model actually going to a website, using its visual browser tool, clicking around saying, hey, I'm looking for different filter options. And what it comes back to you with is a full report of everything it found, as well as, it'll actually tell you it actually went ahead and put those different things in your cart. And if you went to Etsy, you'd actually go ahead and see with your account that everything is there. You're able to now do deep research in authenticated sites. So with Agent, you're able to ask it to go to LinkedIn, it lets you sign in, and now all of a sudden, all of these different places where before models couldn't get into, you're now able to let the agent go and find all the information that you're looking for before. So here, this is an example that one of my EMs really loves to use because he's always hiring, is help me find different engineering managers in New York who are working at high-tech startups, and help me go find them. A couple others that I think are really cool. The model is able to go and do really exciting knowledge work. So you can go together and put together DCFs, or if you're thinking about consumer things, your personal budget, it's able to retrieve from different sources and put together harder analyses. We're also very early in the beginning of making these models do really strong visual layout. And so we have some early versions of slides coming together with the model where it's able to not only create slides, but visually inspect them and say, is this a good design, before giving you a full preview. Again, the model is able to access all your different connectors, authenticated sources. We're going to continue opening this up. So, ChatGPT overall is able to access all different types of information from different partners. And as we're thinking about models that do really long horizon tasks, for things that go for 5, 10, 15 minutes, we start thinking a lot about all the different ways that you can interact with models. And so we've started to make this experience really natively multi-turn. It's the first experience that you can interrupt mid-trajectory and steer as it's going on. It's the first model that, as it's running into different issues, it asks you clarifications as it goes. And all of this is built on what's effectively like a unified computer toolset for the model. So we've essentially equipped a version of O3 with what we call internally a computer tool. And what that means is that we've given it the ability to, one, control a browser, to do deep research, and take action, and two, we've given it a full terminal. And this allows it to generate artifacts, do different data analytics, call different APIs. From a training standpoint, what's really exciting is that this is all one model that's trained end-to-end on really hard tasks. And so we've done a huge amount of reinforcement learning and collected hard tasks from a number of different domains that require really strong multi-tool usage. And so when you see the model kicking off, there isn't a lot of different chaining of things together, but we're really trying to make this thing as general purpose as possible. And what that means is that when it comes to evals, we're doing relatively well. On Mandy's last exam, we've reached some really great milestones, as well as on math reasoning, as well as different navigational benchmarks like Lightspeed and Browse. Some of the other things I just want to call out, we're very early in models being able to do really meaningful work for you and taking actions on your behalf. Agent in particular has a couple of big areas that we've had to think really intentionally about as we release it to different users. One is on biology risk. So you might have seen from our safety card when we released Agent, this is the first model open and it's launched that ranks or we treat as high on our biology risk, which means we want to do a lot of work to mitigate the model from helping malicious actors create novel bio threats. And so we've introduced a ton of different safety work to make sure that folks are not able to use this model in malicious ways. And the second that I think is really interesting is the concept of prompt injection. So as these models are going off in the world and taking action for you, you now have the risk that malicious actors can go trick the model into exfiltrating your personal data or doing different actions than what you intended. It's sort of like phishing, but on top of models. And this is actually a really hard problem. We haven't solved it with humans, which is why you work in a big company, you get all these different phishing training reports. And so we have to solve this more deeply at a model layer if we really want to make sure models can actually go and do really valuable work. So these are all things that are really important and top of mind for us. Anyway, I think the thing to end on is a lot of this is still really early. We put Agent out there mainly because we want to see how people use it. where it works, where it doesn't work. Ultimately, this is something that we think will continue to get much, much better, but there's some really big limitations. Right? Having a browser that's purely remote using a VM has a ton of constraints versus other different ways it can operate. The APIs that it has right now are limited to first-party APIs. We want this thing to actually work much more deeply with a much richer ecosystem. We want this model to go and not just use smaller like trajectories, but be able to go from very short things to very long, minutes, however long trajectories. And so there's so much that we want to be able to do. And ultimately, we want to make sure that as ChatGPT starts going from answering your questions to being able to work with you, that we're able to work with all the different things that you guys are building to make sure that it plugs in and sort of reinforces our ecosystem, and then ChatGPT is able to go and work with you guys as well. And so I'm very pumped about all the things that you guys are doing. I'm really hopeful that agents can be able to help you do that. Thank you.
So if people want to use agents to try and help build their apps or do some research with it, that would be sweet. Now we're over as Mina from TenStorrent. So just to introduce TenStorrent, we've been working with them for a little while now. Of course, you have applications, models, infrastructure, all that stuff. Below that, of course, you need hardware. A lot of people today are pretty canonically using NVIDIA and other pieces of hardware. We started working with the TenStorrent team because they're really building a new set of chips that can significantly improve performance and especially cost for a lot of, I guess, core operations. At the end of the day, you can only drop model costs so much. The hardware doesn't allow you to do that more efficiently. And so we're starting to work with them to introduce actually endpoints which should be available today to you in the runtime, which are actually some of the first models that are publicly available hosted on TenStorrent hardware. So we're excited for you to try that, and I'll have you guys meet as everyone.
All right, here we go. So I'm the last speaker. I'm the last thing standing between you guys and hardcore hacking. So I'm gonna keep it short. I want to tell you a little story. So actually, I want to achieve two things. I want to introduce TenStorrent, and then I want to try and explain TenStorrent, because those are two different things. So the introduction should be super simple. We sell hardware. All the way on the left, we sell dev kits. These are PCI Express cards. We plug them in, they work. We can write models with them, bring up AI workflows. We sell development systems, which are in the middle. We call them boxes, quiet boxes, loud boxes. The description is in the name. And we sell 6U proper full-scale data center, like build racks and deploy hardcore scaled out applications. We're building them giant exabox for training and for balancing lots of inference and clusters. This is the simplest explanation. I think most people get this. On top of hardware, there's the software. You've seen many of the software stacks. This is ours. Starting from the very bottom, there's low-level hardware ISA programming. So you get to see the ISA of our hardware. Like this is the double diamond, triple black ninja environment. Like if you're up for it, we have some customers that go into our open source repo and like ask about instruction and our ISA. Like, why did you make it this way, not that way? On top of that, we have the metal environment. So this is kernel dev and runtime. It's the most similar thing to like CUDA or OpenCL. Like both APIs are pretty much the same. If you're familiar with those environments, that would be your home. On top of that, DTNN, Python, and C++ APIs for ops, like automation spools, L5s, all kinds of operations on single card or scaled out systems. So scale out is built in at the runtime level. It's a fundamental, top level architecture axiom of the hardware. And then on top of that, we have a heavy hitter, which is Forge, full generality, hundreds and hundreds of models. It's an MLIR-based compiler. We also have bounties for all the software stacks. So everything from like $100 for fixing little bugs to thousands of dollars of like porting some of the software to like different operating systems. I'm trying to think of a $50,000 bounty. I have a few ideas. If anybody has ideas, please email me. I want to put a 50K one up there this year, so stay tuned for that. Bounties across all the stacks. Okay, that's the super simple TenStorrent introduction. We try to explain TenStorrent. The best way or the best thing to read would be our open future manifest. It's on our website. The way things are currently going is obviously AI is spreading and entering into every single vertical, every single business model. We know that, that's why we're doing it here today. So it's spreading like wildfire. The other thing that's happening is that some models are getting very big, requiring a lot of resources, a lot of compute to run them. And then on top of that, what we're seeing in the industry is that there's very few hardware players, and the ones that do exist and sell programmable, flexible compute, they are steadily increasing prices. Inevitably, if we stay on this track, the thing that's going to happen is that AI compute, reasoning, and all the AI power will be locked away from the masses, and it will be locked into ownership of few players within our entire world, and they will be gatekeeping it due to high prices and just the overall cost to execute compute in order to unlock intelligence. Tensorent wants to stop this trend and change our closed future into an open one. The way that we're doing that is we're enabling a full AI ecosystem, a full AI compute ecosystem. So one thing that you guys are going to be trying out today is APIs that have a backend on our cloud. So Tensorent, we build the cloud internally. It's got some compute, it's got LLMs, it's got image and video generation. So one of the nodes within your Inworld graph has an LLM backend that's on our cloud. From the cloud, you can order hardware, so cards, they start at $600 a pop. Loudbox and Quietbox are a little bit more expensive, around $10K. Loudbox is pretty fucking loud. It's got strong fans. Quietbox is very quiet. It's got liquid cooling. We like self-explanatory names. Tensorent Galaxy, that's the 6U rack that I showed. We're building an Exabox. We're going to run training and giant LLMs on that, so that'll be super fun. So if you get access to our hardware, the next thing that you can do is get access to our software. Development Hub shows all the AI workloads that we're running, as well as links to all of our open source GitHub repos where you can engage with the software, fork it, tweak it, you can show it to us, you can hide it from us, whatever you want. You can also make some money on the bounties. And then the progression from there is into IP. And really the whole elasticity of the Tensorent business model includes IP. What this means is you can start with a little dev kit or you can start with a cloud. Let's say you start with the cloud. Then you order some cards, then you order some systems. Then you decide to scale up your application because you hit a fucking goal line and you love it. You want to own the AI workload, you want to own the data, you have reasons for doing that. Then you want to maybe fork the software or play around with it or make it your own version. But if you really want to double down on the AI that you're making and you want to own it all the way, Tensorent enables you to do that. So we make our own IP. Everything's in the form of chiplets. That means Lego bricks that you can stitch together into a single silicon device, and you can put it onto a PCB, you can put it onto a system. If you have IP that you like to make, and you want to write your own system Verilog or RTL or use LLMs to generate it and make compute be a very specific way that your application needs, and needs to be exactly the same way, we will help you take it out and make a new product. So we open up the future and have full elasticity of ownership all the way to the cloud, all the way down to IP. So I hope you guys have a blast today. Build it out, scale.
So folks can try it, they can go, when you get access to runtime, you'll find in there some models with Tensor endpoints on that. Those are the first models I think publicly available that are accessible on Tensor hardware, so try it out. So now I'll try and be quiet so that you all can actually do something. So the way that you access runtime is if you check your email now, you should find the instructions there. Make sure that when you sign up, you use the same email that you registered for this event with, because we've set everybody up with accounts already there, and you should get access directly there. So that's basically it. Let's fucking do it. Have fun. Thanks, guys.
Okay, brief introduction. I'm Alexa. I'm community leader at AGI House, and now it's time for hacker pitches. So if anyone already has an idea coming up, you have 30 seconds to present it. Any first volunteers? Right there, I see you. And then if you want, you can either line up on the side or just catch my eye. We'll go from there.
What's your name again? Sean, you know, like earlier.
Hey guys, my name is Carl. I'm from Rockland College. My idea is pretty simple. Create an AI e-commerce agent that can order chocolate for you from Amazon.
by basically using voice and giving you some feedback of what kind of chocolate it's actually finding and doing the transaction in the end as well using Stripe agent kit that is actually now possible to do agentic payments. So I think the infrastructure is ready for those kind of applications, and if anybody's interested, come join. We're looking for engineers and designers. Thanks.
Hey guys, I'm Helena. We are a team with core developers from a blockchain space, and the first time we delivered a purpose-built infrastructure that is able to both execute AI agent or agentic core assets like MCP server rack on chain. So that kind of like brings the built-in verifiability, traceability, and accountability, and especially for consumer AI agents. So, with that kind of infrastructure, we build the two products. Both are kind of a agentic AI creator economy platform. One is just like, for small team individuals, launch their AI agents and immediately access the large users. So they don't have to worry about monetization, marketing, all those things. And then the other one is a kind of like a studio that offers the core agentic assets like MCP servers, racks, that fully kind of like, offer available within a link. You as a agent creator, you can just come over to the studio and pick the core assets you want to use and pay for it, and then you get a link bam, you can easily build your agents. So those are both are kind of like, the creator economy platforms for consumer AI agents.
Wonderful, right, you're all right?
Hi, my name is Earl. I'm a software engineer, spent 5 years at Meta where I built big prototypes for crazy AI ideas. Really love that. And my idea today is a personal MCP, what's called a vault, a place for information about you as a customer, a place where information about you, like your interests, your healthcare information, your spending behavior is collected for your communication with different AI agents. It is securely stored, and then next time when you talk to a new agent, you can connect this vault to this agent so it knows stuff about you. So basically, like a personal knowledge graph about you that you are in charge of.
Great, thank you.
AI social media. All right, that's what we're building. And the reason is there's actually no social media today that actually help people social. Because Mark Zuckerberg said himself, there's only media platforms. Right? Who helps you social? What helps you social? It's actually your friend. Your friend that will actually try to get to know you and bring you into the right conversations, push you to understand yourself a little bit better. And that's what we're building. Join us.
Hi everyone, my name is Ronak Shah. I'm an AI engineer, AI product manager, and also a winner of the Google AI Hackathon, India. My idea today is in healthcare space to build ambient AI agents to help dementia patients with their memory loss and communication challenges to help them live a better social life. Currently, my idea is that from ideation to wireframe stage, my goal today is to build out a prototype slash MVP, and I'm looking for a team of mobile app developers, designer, and AI engineer. Thank you.
Hi, Rachel. So last time I had a dream. I was riding on a jellyfish over a glowing forest. I want to say it again. I remember it. I want to share with my partner. Sometimes I have like bad dreams and I want to change it. But sometimes I daydream about like being next to town and do whatever I want. That's why I want to be dream worlds. It's where you turn your vision, your dream, whether sweet dream, a daydream, into something visual. It can be story, it can be videos, it can be film. It's basically it's magic, it's therapy, it's something inside yourself, and we want to finally visualize it. Come join me. Thank you.
Okay, hello. My name is June. I'm a PhD student related right now studying the voice AI and the conversation AI, and I have the idea of the conversational voice AI, especially for the language acquisition education. So right now, the most language learners don't fail because they have time. They fail because they afraid to speak. They lack confidence. For language anxiety, especially in speaking, significantly hinders performance. So learners should not feel weight in voice speaking where they're ready. So we have to make them speak from day one. So everyone knows the language, we have to do it. So we need a friendly AI character. So let's talk speak clearly without fear judgment. And users can speak with their natural language, and they can mix it if they want. So this kind of thing can be available with this technology, and finding the full segment works for the front. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So my team and I are trying to build something that will save people a lot of time. I'd like to use something that will build you your digital profile with website and app, but we're pretty open to the idea. My team is they're pretty good. They're working on the hands-on. Yeah, so look for one more person. So then you can walk over here and there. So yeah, look forward to it.
Hey guys, great to see all the future billionaires in this room. Just say hi to me. I want to be friends with you when you're a billionaire in 60 days. Today we're here to work. We're piping in 5 billion items from Amazon, Walmart, DoorDash, etc. to the top 10 LLMs because you can't buy anything on 5 billion requests per day of the top 10 LLMs. We're sitting right here. We have 2 engineers, both world class. If you want to come hang out, we're working here. Thank you.
Hey all, I'm Madhav. So I was just looking at the calendar for my week earlier today, and I realized that I ended up wasting about 48 hours in meetings. And the reason I call it wasted hours is because I realized that there was a common pattern in these meetings. We discussed a lot of things, we went on so many different tangents, and then I realized no one knows actually what the action items were. There were a lot of sort of hidden context in these conversations that I could actually instead just sit and work into prompts for AI. So I thought, okay, it would be nice if there was an AI doppelganger or a copy of myself that listens in on these conversations and basically does whatever needs to be done, almost as if it is just me. So it takes out the context of my operation starts from these conversations and becomes a doppelganger. So that's the idea I'm working on. Right now, it's just me. I can code. So if someone, maybe like 1 or 2 people can also work aside with me, that would be really fun. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Evan and I'm building Edo. Edo is a smart dictation tool. Most people are able to type 50 to 100 words a minute. Speaking allows you to get to 150 to 200, and smart dictation lets you do hundreds of words a minute. Today, we're going to try out adding the feature of TTS, so experimenting with what happens if it can talk back to you. If you are interested, we're completely open source. We have 5 engineers on our team. Would love to talk to you if you're curious at all. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Lakshay. I work at Nike. I started by the day. I'm exiting, but today I'm trying to build a gym bro, like a virtual gym bro, that will figure out what reps you need to do today, help you work through the tempo, kind of get the form, the shape, everything right. And when you're really pushing through that last rep, remind you of your failures and romantic and life traumas to really get you through the last little rep. So if you're jacked and or cracked, say hello.
Wonderful. Any other opinions? Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? No? Okay, great. Well, let's get building. I like it. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for voting.